Welcome back to Meaningful Whispers. Tonight you drift into the soft glow of an oil lamp flickering in a palace chamber draped with silk. Outside, the desert wind carries the faint scent of roses, and somewhere beyond the marble walls, a nightingale sings a note so delicate it feels almost like a sigh. You sit quietly, toes grazing cool mosaic tiles, and you know, this is not a night of war drums or royal decrees carved in stone. This is a night where a single line of poetry can shift the course of an empire. And yes, your ego might not make it through unscathed, because what you're about to witness is a kind of power that laughs at swords. So before we dive in, tap that like button and subscribe to Cyphoria. Only if these midnight mind voyages truly speak to you. And tell me, where are you listening from, and what time glows on your clock? Let's see how far across the map of consciousness we stretch tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You begin in the gardens of Shiraz, a place where even silence feels fragrant. There, a young princess with dark, questioning eyes hides from the stiff rituals of the court. Her name is lost to most chronicles, perhaps intentionally erased by those who preferred queens who ruled with armies, not with metaphors. But tonight, you follow her steps through the dew-slick paths between pomegranate trees. She's reciting under her breath words that don't yet belong to anyone else. The mainstream history tells you Persia was a land of dynasties, where power was forged in battles stretching from the Zagros Mountains to the edge of the Indus. But here, in this fragile slice of time, you see another truth. Empires are sometimes held together by beauty, not brutality. One single couplet, whispered at the right moment, can calm a riot more effectively than an entire regiment of soldiers. And as you breathe in, deep, slow, letting your shoulders drop, you remember how the body responds to such softness. The tension in your jaw releases like a knot finally coming undone. You exhale, and you're no longer just you. You're also her, this girl who would soon be queen, holding a reed pen for the first time, realizing that ink is as sharp as any blade. There's an odd little anecdote historians sometimes debate. One night, before her coronation, she is said to have slipped into the marketplace in disguise. She listened to the people sing old poems of love and longing, and from them she learned something her tutors never taught her: how words belong first to the heart, not the throne. Was it true, or just another story scribes invented to make her seem more human, more mythic? Scholars still argue whether this moment was history or legend. But you can almost hear the laughter of the merchants, the hush of the crowd when she spoke a single verse, her voice like a lantern flickering in the dark. "Power is soft," she once wrote. "It bends, but it does not break." Nietzsche might have said something similar, but in harsher tones. She made it sound like a lullaby. You draw another breath now, feel it fill your chest, expand your ribs like the unfolding petals of a rose. Let it out slowly, as if you're blowing away a layer of dust on an ancient manuscript. Time moves strangely in this place. One moment, you're in the dim corridors of her childhood palace. The next, you're watching her first public appearance as queen. No fanfare, no armies flanking her sides, just a veil of soft blue silk, a book in her hand. And you realize with a subtle, wry smile that even back then people probably said things like, "She'll never last without a proper army." They didn't yet know that words could be weapons too. A clever thought lingers in your mind. If more rulers wrote poems instead of treaties, would the world be quieter or simply stranger? Maybe both. But for now, you follow her deeper into the night, toward a throne draped not in gold, but in verses. You're still walking beside her, the young queen who rules not through conquest, but through cadence. The palace corridors seem endless. painted with stories in blue and gold. You trail your fingertips along the cool stone, feeling the pulse of a place that seems alive with whispers. At the far end, a chamber opens into a courtyard floating on water. Yes, a courtyard that reflects the stars like a silent lake. She pauses here every evening, pen in hand, as if waiting for the moon to give her permission to speak. This is where you see her most clearly. Not a monarch in robes of authority, but a poet leaning into the fragility of language. She doesn't raise her voice to command. She softens it, drawing people in like moths circling a single candle. And yet the empire bends around her will. You know from the histories that Persian courts were glittering arenas of rivalry, men with sharp tongues and sharper ambitions. But here she dissolves their plots with metaphors. When two governors fought bitterly over territory, she didn't issue a decree. She sent them each a poem that made them ashamed of their pride. No one quite knew how it worked, but it did, like a quiet alchemy. As you listen, you remember something Jung once said: who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. She seemed to live inside that paradox, always awake yet always dreaming, her gaze turned inward even as she ruled outward. There's a peculiar story scholars like to debate. One spring evening, she invited every poet, scholar, and musician in the city to a gathering, but gave them no instructions. Instead of speeches, she asked for silence. For an entire hour, they just sat, hearing only the sound of water dripping from the courtyard fountains. At the end, she handed each of them a blank page and whispered, "Now you know the shape of listening." Did it happen? No one can say, but the tale itself feels like something she might do. Soft rebellion disguised as grace. You take a slow breath now, letting your spine lengthen, feeling the weight of the day loosen, your shoulders folding into a quiet rest. You notice the subtle rhythm of your own heartbeat, the way it slows when you surrender to stillness. She understood that rhythm, that people are less moved by orders than by moments. So she created moments, tiny, unshakable things that lived longer than stone monuments. But power is never without shadows. In the council chambers, the older ministers muttered about her softness. They said the empire needed iron, not ink, and yet the people in the streets recited her lines, passing them like treasures, like talismans. "She writes what we feel but cannot say," they murmured. It was a kind of quiet uprising, not with swords but with shared breath. You can almost hear the council debates echoing in your mind. Did she really intend to dismantle the old order, or was she simply surviving in her own way? Historians still argue. Some call her a visionary, others call her dangerously naive. Perhaps the truth is both. One evening, she's said to have laughed, lightly like wind rustling through silk, when someone asked if she feared assassination. "How do you kill a verse?" she replied. And for a fleeting second, you realize she wasn't just ruling an empire. She was shaping time itself, leaving something that would ripple long after her body was gone. You inhale again, this time a little deeper. Imagine the faint scent of jasmine from the courtyard, the low hum of a lute somewhere beyond the walls. Let the air fill you, expand you, and then release it as if you're letting go of every name you've ever been called. There's a quiet humor in this moment. If you told a warlord that a queen could rule with nothing but poetry, he'd probably laugh too. Right before she dissolved his rage with a single, well-placed stanza. And you think, maybe real power has always been invisible, like breath itself. Now the moon is higher, the courtyard is silvered with its glow, and she's already moved on, into another verse, another moment. And you, without realizing it, have followed her still. You step into a quieter part of the palace now, following her shadow as it bends across carved wooden screens. The room you enter is small, intimate, lined with shelves of delicate manuscripts, each wrapped in silk. This isn't a war room, nor a treasury, but it feels more dangerous than either. Here, words are stored like precious seeds, each one capable of sprouting revolutions. She sits on a low cushion, cross-legged, a candle flickering beside her. The flame's dance softens the sharp edges of the night, and as you watch, she doesn't write right away. She closes her eyes, inhales slowly, lets the silence stretch until it feels sacred. You feel your own breath sinking with hers, slow, measured, grounding you in the moment. Persian culture prized poets almost as much as kings. In fact, sometimes the poets were the kings, in their own way. You remember how Rumi once wrote, "Raise your words, not your voice. It is rain that grows flowers, not thunder." That's what she believed too. Her reign was like rain, soft, persistent, reshaping the soil of the empire. An anecdote drifts into your mind, one historians love to argue about. They say she once met a foreign emissary who refused to bow, claiming women could not hold real power. Instead of ordering his execution, she handed him a cup of wine and a single couplet. "You stand taller than the sea, but even waves bow to the moon." By the next morning, he'd pledged loyalty to her cause. Did it really happen? Maybe not, but does it matter? The story itself became a kind of truth, more enduring than any dry record. As you linger, you notice how different this power feels. There's no clatter of weapons, no barking of orders, just the subtle rearrangement of hearts one by one. She didn't fight her enemies. She disarmed them by showing them the emptiness of their own violence. Still, you sense the tension coiling beneath the surface. The ministers whisper that poetry cannot build roads or defend borders. The generals speak in sharp, clipped tones, saying that empires do not survive on metaphors. And yet, the people in the villages sing her verses, carving them into the walls of markets and bathhouses. Which is more enduring, a fortress of stone or a line of verse passed from mouth to mouth? Century after century, your breath softens again. You feel the weight of your body settling into gravity, your thoughts loosening like knots untangling in slow motion. There's a certain surrender in recognizing that control is often an illusion, that influence flows like water rather than striking like a hammer. She seemed to understand this long before others did. When drought struck the western provinces, she didn't send soldiers to seize grain. She wrote a poem that spread across the empire, urging those with plenty to share with those in need. And they did. No threats, no punishments, just words blooming into action. You can't help but wonder what it felt like for her. To rule while being doubted at every turn. To hold power so lightly that it didn't look like power at all. Perhaps that's why her poetry carried such weight. She wasn't reaching for immortality. She was simply holding the present so gently that it refused to crumble. There's another layer of mystery that scholars debate endlessly. Some claim she had a secret lover, a poet who wrote under a false name, smuggling her verses in return. Others insist she remained alone, married only to her craft. It's an ambiguity that fits her perfectly, neither entirely knowable nor entirely hidden, existing in the liminal space where myth and truth intertwine. You exhale now, feeling a small release in your chest, a sense of drifting. The flickering candle in her chamber becomes a distant star in your mind, and you imagine it swaying slightly with each breath you take. And then, in the softest voice, she recites to no one in particular. Even silence writes its own poem. You smile faintly at the thought. Even her silence has had weight, even her quiet-shaped worlds. Outside, the city rests. The markets are empty, the streets hushed. But in hidden corners, her words are still alive. Painted on pottery, etched into memory. Whispered like prayers. The empire continues, not because of the iron grip of its rulers, but because of a woman who dared to let words be her sword and shield. And you realize, following her now, that sometimes the softest paths leave the deepest imprints. You wander further, and the palace begins to dissolve into something less tangible. like a watercolor blurred by rain. Outside, the gardens open up in a gentle hush of moonlight. The air smells faintly of rose water and warm earth. And for a moment, you forget you're standing in the heart of a dynasty. You almost feel you're in a dream, except the stones beneath your feet are too real, too cool to dismiss. She walks beside you now, the Persian Queen whose name has been wrapped in rumor and song. She doesn't speak. She doesn't need to. Her presence feels like the echo of a story you've always known but can never quite recall. And you too fall into silence. A fact floats into your mind as you watch her trace a fingertip along the edge of a pomegranate tree. Persian poetry often blurred the line between love and mysticism. To write of a lover was to write of the divine. To write of the divine was to write of the self. Rumi again whispers through the ages, "Close your eyes, fall in love, stay there." She understood this blurring better than anyone. Her verses weren't just entertainment. They were medicine for the spirit, softening the harsh edges of courtly life. The soldiers who once mocked her as weak began keeping scraps of her poems tucked in their armor. The merchants who counted their coins began quoting her lines to soften their bargains. Slowly, without decree or sword, she reshaped the empire's heartbeat. There's an old anecdote about her reign that feels too strange to be fabricated. One evening, a band of would-be assassins slipped into the palace gardens. They had been bribed, their loyalty twisted by jealous nobles. But when they found her, she was seated under the stars, reciting a verse about forgiveness. One of them froze mid-step, listening, then another. By the time she finished, all of them had thrown down their daggers. Did this really happen? Or was it simply a story that people told themselves because they wanted to believe in the power of words over blades? Historians still argue. You pause to breathe, slowly, deeply, letting the coolness of night air seep into your lungs. Feel the rise of your chest, the softness of your shoulders as they relax. For a moment, you are not in your own time. You are here in her garden, where time doesn't move in straight lines, but spirals softly like the patterns on Persian tiles. The garden itself becomes a metaphor for her rule. Everything tended with patience, pruned with care, nourished by intention. She believed in cycles, in seasons, in trusting the soil to do its work. When her ministers fretted about enemies gathering at the borders, she would remind them, even winter bows to spring. Sometimes this calm infuriated them. Sometimes it saved them. Of course, not everyone adored her. Power always creates shadows. Some whispered that she was too soft, too consumed by her verses to notice the silent claws of ambition scratching at her gates. Others claimed she bewitched the court with her beauty and her words, masking political schemes beneath silk and rhyme. Truth? Myth? Or perhaps both? Even now, scholars can't quite separate the woman from the legend. You feel a faint smile curl at the edge of your mind, because isn't that the nature of history? We remember the feeling more than the facts. We remember the dream of her, not the details of her taxes or treaties. She stops before a small fountain, its water glinting under the pale moon. The sound is soft, like distant applause, like the gentle murmur of a secret shared between worlds. She leans down, scoops a handful of water, and lets it fall through her fingers. Even water remembers the shape of the hand, she says quietly. It's the kind of statement that lingers, that could mean everything or nothing. You tuck it away in your mind like a fragile token, and then you notice something. Her reign isn't just about peace. It's about resilience disguised as grace. She knew the power of appearing gentle while holding unshakable resolve. Her poetry wasn't an escape from governance. It was the very foundation of it, like roots beneath the soil, invisible yet holding the whole structure together. You breathe again, slowly. Your body feels heavier now, but in a comforting way. Like you're sinking into a warm river, letting the current carry you. Somewhere beyond the palace walls, people are still awake. A mother hums one of her verses to soothe her child. A scholar copies her poems by lamplight, wondering how to preserve them for future generations. A traveler carries her words across deserts, planting seeds of her philosophy far beyond the empire's reach. She turns to you one last time before fading into the garden's shadows. And for a fleeting second, you think you see the faintest smile. Not triumphant, not sorrowful, just quietly knowing. And you realize that her reign is still happening, even now. Not in palaces or armies, but in the unseen ways that poetry shapes thought. And thought shapes the world. You drift deeper into the silence that follows her absence, and the garden becomes a corridor of memory. The air thickens with the scent of jasmine, mingled faintly with ink, a phantom aroma of words yet unwritten. You step forward, and the soft crunch of gravel feels almost too loud, like you've disturbed something sacred. Beyond the fountain lies a small pavilion. Its columns are slender, carved with delicate calligraphy that catches the moonlight. You move closer, tracing the lines with your fingertips. They're verses from her own hand, etched into stone to outlive the fragility of parchment. A heart ruled by kindness never dies, it reads, simple and unadorned. You feel the weight of that truth settle into you. She was unlike the rulers before her. In an age when power was measured by fortresses and armies, she measured hers in verses and silences. She believed, perhaps stubbornly, that a kingdom could be more than fear and obedience. Did it always work? Of course not. There were droughts she couldn't stop, famines she couldn't fully ease, and plots she couldn't always untangle. But even in failure, her response was human. And somehow, that made the empire more willing to endure hardship. You recall a curious story whispered by traveling merchants. One winter, a distant province rebelled. Instead of sending soldiers, she sent poets. They arrived not with weapons, but with stories and songs. By spring, the rebellion dissolved, not out of defeat, but out of shame. Whether it truly happened or was a fable embroidered over time, no one can quite agree. Historians still puzzle over whether her methods were strategic brilliance or naive hope disguised as diplomacy. Pause for a moment. Let your breath slow. Inhale softly through your nose, hold it gently, and release through parted lips. Feel your eyelids grow heavier with each exhale. Let your shoulders drop, unburdened, as if you're releasing centuries of unspoken histories. You realize that she didn't just write poetry, she lived inside it. Her court became a living verse. The architecture mirrored the rhythm of her stanzas, domes rising like crescendos, arches folding into quiet refrains. Even the daily rituals followed a poetic structure. Morning petitions began with a line of verse. Meals ended with a whispered reflection. It was as if she wanted her people to inhabit beauty, not merely observe it. And yes, there were those who mocked her. You can't rule an empire with words, they sneered, but perhaps they underestimated the way words seep into the marrow of culture. Words are seeds. They grow slowly, invisibly, until one day the garden you thought was ornamental becomes a forest too dense to uproot. Nietzsche once said, "We have art in order not to die of the truth." And here in her reign, you feel that. She didn't deny the harsh truths. She simply gave people a way to endure them without breaking. There's a quiet humor in it too. You picture the hardened generals of her empire, men who'd spent decades in battle, secretly memorizing her softest love poems. Imagine them pretending not to care, while tracing her verses under candlelight. It's a reminder that even the fiercest hearts have secret corners where gentleness blooms. You notice the sound of water again, not the fountain from before, but a slow trickling from somewhere beyond the pavilion. You follow it, feeling the cool marble under your steps. It leads you to a secluded pool where lanterns float, their flames trembling like small, watchful souls. You kneel beside it, and for a moment, you see her reflection ripple in the water. Not her face exactly, but the idea of her, as if she's stitched into the very fabric of this place. She ruled not through fear, but through the quiet authority of presence. And you realize that this is harder, in many ways, than commanding with violence. Fear creates immediate results. Poetry creates enduring change, but it demands patience. She chose the long path, knowing she might never see the full bloom of her work. Some say she wrote her final poem not on parchment, but in the way she left the world. When illness crept upon her, she didn't retreat into secrecy or desperation. Instead, she gathered her court and recited one last verse. No one agrees on the exact words. Perhaps they never truly remembered. Only the feeling it gave them. Was it resignation or liberation? Scholars still debate whether she saw death as an ending or simply another metaphor. You breathe again, deeply. This time it feels like a sigh of release, as though you've been holding something you didn't know needed letting go. The pool's lanterns flicker, and you feel the subtle pull of sleep tugging at the edges of your awareness. And yet, the story is not finished. Her influence stretched beyond her lifetime. Long after her reign, her poems traveled farther than her armies ever could. They slipped across borders, carried by traders, lovers, and wanderers. Even lands that had never known her name felt the echo of her thoughts. You wonder now, could a single human soul, through sheer devotion to beauty, alter the trajectory of history? Or was she simply a fragile candle in the wind, flickering brightly for a moment before vanishing? Perhaps both. Perhaps that's the paradox of every life that dares to choose grace over force. The pavilion fades behind you, the pool fades, even the lanterns dim into darkness. But her words, they stay, like whispers in your ear, like an aftertaste you can't quite name. You linger in the darkness, not in fear, but in a calm that feels almost sacred. The silence is deep now, deeper than before. It's the kind of quiet that makes you aware of your own heartbeat, the soft rhythm in your chest like a hidden drum guiding you forward. You realize that her story doesn't end where history says it does. It lives beyond her name, beyond her titles, even beyond her empire. You drift into a vast courtyard you've never seen before. It isn't marked by grandeur, but by absence. No columns, no fountains, just an open sky and the faint scent of parchment lingering like a memory. At the center, there's a single stone pedestal. Upon it rests a book. Its cover is plain, but the pages flutter as if moved by a breeze you can't feel. You step closer. The text inside isn't in any language you know, but somehow you understand it. It's her poetry, but now it speaks directly to you, bypassing words. You feel her lessons, not as commands, but as invitations, to slow down, to notice, to choose gentleness even when the world demands steel, to be both fragile and unyielding. And you think of how rare that is. Most rulers are remembered for battles, for treaties signed in desperation, for monuments that crumble over time. She left behind something harder to destroy, a way of thinking. Poetry, unlike marble, doesn't weather. It lives as long as someone remembers a single line. There's a soft breeze now, carrying the faint echo of voices. Maybe they're scholars debating her legacy. Maybe they're lovers reciting her verses to one another. Or maybe it's the sound of the empire she shaped, still breathing quietly through the centuries. Historians can argue all they want, whether her approach was practical or naive, whether her reign was truly peaceful or simply less violent than the rest. But you sense something more personal here. Her reign was an experiment in what it meant to be human while holding power. Take a slow breath. Inhale through your nose for 4 counts, hold it gently, and exhale for 6. Feel how your entire body softens. You are not just listening to her story now, you're becoming part of it. A memory surfaces of her final days. Not the public version, not the one inscribed on palace walls, but the intimate one whispered by a handmaiden long forgotten. They say the queen spent her last night not in a grand chamber, but in the gardens, barefoot, tracing the earth with her fingers. She murmured to the soil as if speaking to old friends. "This," she said, "is the only kingdom I ever truly ruled." And then she smiled, a small, knowing smile, before the dawn took her. Was it true? No one can say, but does it matter? The power of such a story isn't in whether it's factual, but in what it stirs in you. Like dreams, it reshapes you, even if you can't explain how. Nietzsche once said, "Invisible threads are the strongest ties," and you feel that now. Her invisible threads wind through time, through memory, even through you. You carry a piece of her now, the way a dream clings to your skin long after you wake. You glance back at the pedestal. The book is gone. In its place is a single folded slip of paper. You open it, expecting words, but it's blank. Or maybe not blank. Maybe the meaning is too subtle for your waking mind. Maybe it's meant to be written by you. The courtyard fades. The night folds in around you like soft velvet. There is no empire now, no queen, no palace, just the lingering echo of her voice, gentle and certain. And in that echo, you hear something you didn't expect, your own voice answering back. Because that's the quiet revolution of her life. She reminds you that power isn't always about ruling others. Sometimes it's about ruling yourself, your impulses, your need for conquest. Sometimes it's about choosing not to fight, even when you could. You take one final deep breath. Feel the weight of your body sink into the space beneath you. Your hands grow heavier, your eyelids flutter. Sleep is coming, soft as silk, and as you drift, you sense her presence. Not as a queen, not as a distant figure in history, but as a companion in the long, quiet journey of being human. Her reign, you realize, never ended. It just changed shape. It moved into the minds of those who still dream of a gentler world, like you. Now you let go of the story, of the night, of the need to understand. You simply drift. And now, as the echoes of her poetry settle into silence, let your breath match the rhythm of the night. Slow, easy, unhurried. Feel how the air moves in and out, a tide without urgency. You've walked through her gardens, you've touched the words carved into her reign, and now there's nothing left to hold on to but the quiet. Notice the weight of your limbs, how they melt into the space beneath you. Your mind, like her kingdom, no longer needs to build walls or plan battles. There is only stillness, a soft hum, like the distant memory of a song you once knew. In this calm, imagine her poetry still rippling outward, across centuries, across lands, across the fragile bridge of your own thoughts. Imagine that each breath you take carries a fragment of that gentleness, planting it silently into the world around you. And if a stray thought wanders in, let it. Watch it drift past like a lantern on dark water. No resistance, no need to cling. You are safe. You are whole. You are enough, exactly as you are in this moment. So rest now. Let your dreams take the threads of her story and weave them into your own. Somewhere, in that space between waking and sleeping, you might meet her again, not as a queen, but as a whisper, a reminder that even the softest voices can outlast empires. Sleep well, sleep deeply, sleep peacefully.